In Ireland, there's obviously a number of developers in the market who are progressing with projects and initiating projects, and today we're going to hear from Greengate Biogas and their representative Chris Walters, who's a senior advisor on Greengate's perspective around developing their project portfolio. Chris is a senior advisor, as I said, with Greengate Biogas, and has over 25 years experience working in the gas business. For the last 8 years has focused on renewable gases, particularly biogas and biomethane. At Greengate, Chris works on the commercial, regulatory and policy sides of the business, engaging with potential off-takers with respect to the sale of Greengate's future biomethane production, and with government and regulatory agencies with respect to aspects impacting the development of the sector here. He has extensive experience in gas and biomethane contracting and negotiation, policy and regulation, as well as international gas and LNG markets. So we're delighted to welcome Chris and to present to you today.
Great, thank you very much, Sean, and thank you to you and IrBEA, the wider IrBEA team, for inviting Greengate to speak at today's conference. As Sean said, my name is Chris Walters. I'm with Greengate and focus particularly on policy, stakeholder engagement and biomethane sales for the team. I was going to reiterate my background, I've done it from already. So 25 years of gas experience, 8 in biomethane. The topic I was asked to speak on was perspectives and experiences from developing large energy projects. I'm not exactly sure I've really stuck to the brief, so forgive me if I wander around a bit, but hopefully we'll get some answers to those questions that you were looking for. So what I plan to do is introduce who we are, what does Greengate do, what we're doing in Ireland with respect to biomethane, what broader experience sits behind our group that might qualify us for saying what it takes to develop large energy projects. Then I'll touch on some information of our most developed project, which is at Powerstown, County Carlow, and then have a look at some of the stages of project development that we're going through here, that we've been through before, and see what kind of issues, lessons learned, themes we can pick out from that that can inform what it takes to develop large energy projects. And looking particularly at planning and permitting, feedstock and offtake. So that's what I plan to do, and hopefully do it within time. So just by way of introduction to Greengate Biogas, this slide sets out our ambition, which is to develop 7 large-scale biomethane plant production facilities across Ireland, similar in scale to the kind of facilities you might see in Denmark, and you'll see why Denmark might be a theme of this talk. Greengate Biogas is a consortium of 3 parties who are, in no particular order, although it's always good to start with the most important one, Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners, who are our financial backer, and specifically the Advanced Bioenergy Fund of Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners. They're a Denmark-based infrastructure fund focused exclusively on renewable energy project development and investment, and indeed operation. The other partner is Atlas Renewables, a local development team specifically set up to develop biomethane plants in Ireland. The team will have extensive experience of biomethane project development in the UK and indeed globally. And Energex Partners, a UK-based specialist commercial advisor to the energy industry. So that's our group. We launched in June 2024 in Ireland and have been running hard indeed before and since then. As you can see from the map, we have a plan to develop 7 plants across Ireland. These aren't precise locations, it's indicative, but to give you a feel for what we're trying to do. We are developing multiple projects in parallel, and you can see there at the bottom left-hand side of the screen. The idea is to get our first one into planning early next year, and then every 6 months a new one into planning, and then through the planning phase and into final investment decision and construction. So that's what we're trying to do. And now we're just going to touch on our most advanced project in County Carlow at Powerstown. don't read the words. The words are basically repeating what's on the previous slide, but I included it really for the pictures. You can see the artist's rendition on the top right-hand picture. Powerstone is being developed in a former quarry, so it's a long way from areas of the population and very good road connections. The plant will have a production capacity of 250 gigawatt hours a year, larger than the standard projects being considered in Ireland, processing 650,000 tons of manures and slurries as feedstock. We only take manures and slurries, no crop or other waste or other waste streams. The digestate produced by our plants will be returned to our farm suppliers or redirected, if our farm suppliers don't want it, back to alternative customers, for example, in the tillage sector. We have a local team that's been engaging with farmers within our catchment area over the last 2 years who've been securing feedstock for the plant, and we've now got letters of intent for all the feedstock that we require. We've also been engaging with the local community and local authority and have had a very positive response to our plans thus far, which is great news. We held a community event back in April, open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Lots of interesting questions, lots of interest. Not much, questions you'd expect. Does it smell? Is it noisy? Will there be a lot of extra traffic? But generally speaking, people were curious rather than negative, which was great to see. So I'd recommend obviously every developer engage with the community early, speak to the community, because that will make a big difference. So, moving back to Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners, just to give you a sense of why we might be qualified to talk about large energy projects. CIP is a large infrastructure investment fund that has raised cumulatively since 2012 32 billion euro to invest in renewable energy projects. Its largest fund is the Copenhagen Flagship Fund. You see there in the green growing bar in the bottom. And we are backed by the Advanced Bioenergy Fund, which does look quite small on this, right at the top of the stack, but it's still over €1 billion. But the reason CIP are interesting is not just because they can raise money. They can raise money, which is great, which means that we are well backed. But what they do is put projects into development and into operation. So CIP have 50 plus investments in large-scale greenfield renewable projects, 16 gigawatt hours already in operation, 160 gigawatt hours of projects across all technologies under development, and 2,300 people across the world. So we're very lucky in our backer to have a group like that provides not only the money, but a huge amount of technical expertise to help us develop the projects. And a little bit more on the CIP sort of development. You can see in the pictures on the right-hand side is the Thunder or Tonda biogas plant, which is CIP's flagship operating plant in Denmark. You can see that the shots, it moved from February 2023 to June 2025 when it became fully operational. You may think, and I always thought, well, if 250 gigawatt hours, our Greengate plants are going to be quite big. This thing is 930,000 tons of waste every year, producing 440 gigawatt hours of biomethane. So a big energy project. CIP is targeting having 3 terawatt hours of biomethane per annum by 2028. So big targets, and Greengate Biogas is part of that target. So I just want to touch a little bit on what Sean actually asked us to talk about, so hopefully I'll manage to do a bit of that. To look at the different phases of project development, what matters in each phase, and what we think, what lessons we have learned I reflected on reading the slides that maybe it's a bit generic because it's actually quite hard to draw lessons that are universal. But I'll do my best, and we'll see where we get to. So I'm going to focus particularly. You see the full project development life cycle here in front of you, from site origination through to FID. The obvious story is you don't start spending the money till you start building, and you're always trying to minimize your spend through the development process as you de-risk the project. But you do have to work, you do have to spend some money to get to the point where you've got a fully de-risked project. And I'm going to talk specifically about permits and grid connection, feedstock and offtake, dealing with some of the issues that we're encountering and some of the issues that we see from elsewhere and what we think matters. So if we start with permitting, a few top tips, I guess, if you like. Really to understand and manage to the extent possible the permitting process. Every permitting situation, every country is different, and often different within regions, within countries. So don't assume you can bring a lesson from somewhere else straight into the particular situation. I was in Spain recently. There are 17 autonomous regions in Spain. Each one has different regulation and legislation relating to the management of biogas. So you can do one thing in Castilla that you can't do in Navarra. It's complicated. So make sure you do your homework, build your understanding of the relevant process for your project, set up your project so that it then aligns with that regulation and permitting process. Otherwise, you're immediately into conflict. So build it early. Build your understanding early. Hire experienced local consultants. I hope we've done that. Feely Timney, are you in the room? I think you probably are. And consider taking on legal advice to make sure that any grey areas you properly understand. Engage with regulators and legislators. When you come into an environment where the biogas industry is new, you have to expect there to be gaps and inconsistencies in the legislation and regulation. It's being built around you as you try and develop your project. So be prepared to engage with government and national and local level, regulatory agencies and other relevant stakeholders to help shape the framework that will govern the industry. It's our job, not just their job. So let's work together to make this happen. You won't always get what you want, but you need your voice to be heard, particularly when the industry is setting up. And certainly from our experience here in Ireland, we found the officials, regulators to be very open and open to discuss and open to listen, and we thank them all for that. The other thing to point out is make sure you're building public support. Public support wherever you are is essential for a successful project development. And it starts actually with good site selection. You get the wrong site, however hard you try, you'll never get the public support you want. If it's in the wrong place, if it's by a primary school, if you're going to be sending trucks past it every day, that's not going to work. Engage early with the local community through public information events and be prepared to change plans in response to feedback. Very important, and it's amazing how many projects across Europe have been successfully developed by engaging properly with the local community, adjusting their plans. As a sort of anecdote, in Denmark, they've just done a report, a survey, looking at social acceptability of biogas in the country. And the highest proportion of people who were positive towards biogas plants were people who lived in the immediate vicinity of a biogas plant. So that tells you a lot. Biogas done properly generates good local community support. Final point on this agenda, ensure you've got effective, cost-efficient grid connection. It's obvious. You don't have a project if you don't have a gas or electricity connection. So make sure you do your analysis properly before you engage to make sure you know that the supporting infrastructure is likely to be available and close by. Understand the process for securing the connection, and as Sean was just saying, talk to us. Engage early with the utility providers so that you know what you need to do, and be fully prepared on your side with the technical information that's needed. And remember, you aren't the only game in town. These people are busy. So you need to make sure you're heard, but also come as prepared as you can to make their lives easier. Next, I thought I'd touch on feedstock. Again, feedstock availability. To have a project, your feedstock has to be close, available to the plant. It's critical to success. Make sure you do your detailed mapping of feedstock so you know that there is feedstock likely to be available based on published data, but also visits to potential feedstock and anchor suppliers. And seek sites where you've got good coverage. So you don't want 1 times your feedstock supply within your radius. Look at 3 times, look at 4 times. That gives you the feedstock coverage you need. Competition. In other markets, I would be worried about competition. Here in Ireland, I don't know, Leon's got the numbers, it's 70 million tons of manure and slurry, 40 million tons of accessible manures and slurries. There's plenty of feedstock in Ireland to do multiple biogas plants without stretching. So I don't think there's going to be a big fight for feedstock. That said, you need to make sure that you employ local experienced people who know the farmers, who can engage in the areas that you're targeting to make sure that you get the supply that you need. And there may be opportunity to build partnerships with local aggregators to support your supply. Feedstock quality goes without saying. Make sure you do your testing to make sure that the feedstock is the feedstock that you're expecting. And also, take multiple samples so that you've got your lab tests that prove that the gas yields are there. But it's all very well having good feedstock. You also need good logistics to make sure that once your plant is up and running, that feedstock is being delivered in a timely fashion to your plant. And feedstock pricing, don't talk particularly about this, but to the extent possible, you need to make sure that you don't expose yourself as a biogas producer to pricing that you can't afford. Again, I'll use the Spain example rather than the UK example. There are about 200 biomethane plants under development in Spain at the moment. People are running around trying to get feedstock, and they are offering farmers stupid money for pig slurry. These projects will never get built and they'll never make money, but it's damaging the development of the industry there. So being intelligent about feedstock pricing is very important. I'm being told I've got a minute. Right, so offtake. Offtake is obviously critical. You're not going to take final investment decision on a plant unless you've got good offtake. So where are we looking? Where is the industry looking? I guess there are 3 main buckets that we might look at. Maritime is very exciting at the moment. There are about 1,500 new container ships coming onto the water in the next 5 years, burning liquefied natural gas. A lot of them are looking for a bioelement of their offtake. So biomethane suppliers across Europe are targeting and being targeted by ship operators for their supply. And that's a very interesting new market that's at a big scale compared to the existing biomethane market. FuelEU Maritime, and the reason maritime is interesting is that there are new regulations under the International Maritime Organization and also under the EU, FuelEU Maritime, driving that demand. I'll move straight to Ireland because I'm really running out of time. Ireland, we've got the RTFO on transport, we've got the renewable heat obligation. We're very excited by the renewable heat obligation. We think it could give a big boost to the domestic industry. I think one thing I might repeat Sean's comment, a little bit more visibility beyond the first 2 years would be really helpful for us and for the suppliers looking to contract with Irish biomethane producers. So I'll stop there because I've probably run over. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Chris, for your presentation and very interesting proposals from Greengate, and we wish you success with your endeavours. We're also delighted that you're involved in a number of our committees on the charter and indeed on our work at the moment on the gestation issues around that. So thank you for your presentation.